welcome everybody to the Affordable Housing Trust meeting, October 19th. We are part remote, part in person, so we're going to roll call individuals, starting with, is Nicole still not on there?
Correct. I think we have Eric, though. He's just in as a panelist. Or, I'm sorry, he's in as an attendee.
Can we promote him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Well, we'll start with the roll call here. Andy?
Jefferson here.
Dan here. Bruce Spinney is also here. And Ed?
Frisbee here.
Brittany?
Here.
And Eric?
Here.
Perfect. So tonight we have a brief meeting, but we have some attendees here that need to talk about some business that we're going to start with Karen and the housing production plan. I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to reach out or correspond or anything like that, but Karen, we just need a brief update on any substantive changes from the last meeting. We know we have a big meeting coming up in November.
Yes. So in regard to the draft housing production plan, we filled in some holes. I made some additional changes based on the meeting that we had and your comments and Fiona's comments. And that draft has been posted. If there are additional comments, please send them along. There's still obviously time to make changes. Also, we put together a flyer, and I know Amber and Fiona folks have been trying to get the word out about the housing forum that's coming up in November. And I prepared a draft PowerPoint presentation that was part of your packet. Fiona and Amber had a chance to look at it, and it's a matter if there are additional comments we can make, obviously, edit it as you see fit. The meeting would open up with somebody. I'm not certain, Bruce, if you're going to be able to be there or not, but someone doing a welcome and introductions. It's going to be at the community barn, which looks like a terrific space. Fiona sent me some photos. It looks like a really great place for the forum. And then I'm going to go over the presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments. We'll have an easel and flip chart there with a marker. We can actually record any comments or questions that come from the meeting, and then make whatever changes we think are appropriate. And then we need to talk about the approval process for the planning board and the select board.
Okay, is there anything that you need to happen before that workshop in the interim?
Amber and Fiona had a meeting kind of on logistics, and I think we're all set basically to do it.
Okay, is there any comments briefly from the trust? And I assume everybody's comfortable with letting the professionals handle setting this up.
Yeah.
Okay, Brittany or Eric? Okay,
Put it on my end.
Nicole?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, well, Karen, thank you very much for coming. If we get closer and you need the trust for anything, I'm going to assume that you're not going to. But any feedback that we have between now and then, do it sooner rather than later as far as going through it. And then from a trust perspective, if we have a quorum there, we're going to have to post. So make sure that any updates or anything that we need to have there from our perspective have to be done in a timely manner. Can't be last minute. So
Sounds good.
I'll be able to attend now. So
Oh,
I
good.
think that puts us at a quorum.
Excellent.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much, Karen.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, so next on the agenda, we have 17 and 27 Upton Street. I broke this into two parts. One is something that I passed over last time, and then we have some bills at the end. But John Grant's with us tonight, and I believe I saw Gene on there. Yep. If you don't mind, just introduce yourselves. We do have a new trust member. I don't think was part of any of these discussions or has had a formal meeting with you folks since she got on the trust. So starting with you, John.
I'm John Grant. I'm the president of GSX Ventures, the development company that's pushing the project forward. And with me tonight is Gene Christie from Ty and Bond, our civil engineer, environmental engineer, landscape architect, and wetlands consultant. So we want to make a report tonight on the progress we've made and talk probably mostly about the Conservation Commission and what things we've done to react to their response. Maybe, Gene, you can start out by talking about the initial response of the original plan by Conservation.
Sure. Thanks, John. Bruce, do I have an opportunity to share my screen at all?
Sure, Amber can set that up for you.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So like John said, my name is Gene Christie. I'm an engineer with Ty and Bond. We've been working with John for over a year on some of the preliminary work to get this project moving. So far, we have done some environmental investigations to look at some potential contamination on site. We've evaluated soil samples, groundwater samples, and then prepared a report to summarize all that to identify the next steps. We've also done some hazardous building materials assessment on the existing buildings to determine what the next steps are in demolition of those buildings. We did a redelineation of the wetlands on site and have so far met with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board one time to present our conceptual layouts to get some initial feedback from both regulatory agencies. And now I'm ready to show you where we are. Can't quite get there yet, though.
It's not giving you the option to share your screen?
It's saying I'm disabled.
Oh. It's not giving me the option to enable it.
These new drawings.
All right.
There we go.
Right now?
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you should see color to start with.
Probably did.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So this is the plan that we presented initially to the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. This used the wetland resource areas that were delineated by the town, a couple years ago. It was an aggressive development. I'm trying to zoom in here so you can see that this thicker dashed red line was the wetland boundary. And then you can see our building on top of that. I went to the Conservation Commission in early September and presented this plan and received some great feedback from them. We know in town that there is a 25-foot no disturb buffer. And with this plan, we are encroaching on that, and we do have some wetland fill. So that was a big topic of conversation. My understanding from that meeting was that the Conservation Commission was not comfortable approving a plan that had this impact without considerable reason why we can't meet that 25-foot no disturb buffer zone. So I went back with John. We revised the layout of the building a bit. We incorporated our new wetland delineation line, which we did last summer. And we're able to still fit the building into the site. There are still impacts in the 25-foot no disturb zone, but they are minimized, probably to the best that we can get with this layout. We've relocated some parking within, underneath the building, that first floor here, and the second floor, subsequent floors will be above. There are some potential direct wetland impacts here, but we've considerably reduced them at this point. The reason why we've asked from the Planning Board, if I even step back a little further, to push the building further back in the property with, Upton Street being here, is because of the location of the fire station across the street, and some of their alarms can be quite loud. So we wanted to push the residential piece as far back as we could. And I think that's, yeah, please.
A second. So our initial plan, the one you saw before, had an impact of about 4,700 square feet of wetlands that we disturbed. You're allowed to disturb up to 5,000 square feet of wetlands. So we took it to 4,700 square feet, and we thought that we were staying within the boundary that was set up, by conservation, but they felt otherwise. So we redesigned the whole project based on trying to minimize that. This plan only has around 300 square feet of disturbance in total. And we feel that this is probably a plan that they can approve. If not, I mean, it'd be very unreasonable for them not approve that, because as you can see, some of these indentations, like the one on the right-hand side there, are just, erratic indentations of the wetlands. But Jean has put together a strategy, which I think she can talk to you about right now, for how we go back and deal with the Conservation Commission. I also want to stress that if any of you have any influence on the Conservation Commission, it would be nice if you would exert it now, because as they chip away at this thing, we in the transition between the last project and this project, we lost 2 units, which was not great. But I think actually it was pretty good, considering that we lost so much land mass. So go ahead,
So I
Jean.
think our strategy for moving forward with the Conservation Commission is to propose different types of mitigation. One thing we'll want to propose is that there are invasive species within this wetland. We can work to clean those up within probably designated areas. I don't think we can do the whole wetland. It's a really large one. But there's probably some work we can do there. One of the things the Conservation Commission wanted us to look at was being really creative with our stormwater management, using more, low impact development tools rather than a traditional stormwater management, collection and conveyance system. So that's going to include, we'll evaluate looking at if pervious pavement's an option here, if we're looking at rain gardens along this area here where we can to deal with runoff from the parking lot. We do have an area of stormwater management down here that we think we're going to need at some point, but the site right now is pretty much entirely developed. It was paved at one point. It's pretty broken pavement. We're going to clean up the site. So I think that's a big part of it, is that we're removing underground storage tanks, demolishing a building with hazardous building materials, 2 of which are really important pieces, and then cleaning up a site stormwater wise that doesn't have any stormwater controls now into having a system that's fully compliant with the Massachusetts stormwater regulations and the town's regulations. So I think with those combined efforts, our case is pretty solid in asking for this waiver.
We are spending about $700,000. That's our estimate in remediation of the site. So we are doing quite a bit of work to remove any of the chemicals that were left there by the DPW.
So you're not going to know until, the Concom is responsive to people who want to come in and actually present a concept plan, but they're a very, matter-of-fact type of board, and their jurisdiction revolves around just one thing, the wetlands impact. So we're not going to know until we actually get in there and get into the process.
Right.
So,
and I think, we can bring this plan back to them at this point, with your support. If you have any comments on this that we can incorporate to make it an even better plan, that'd be helpful. But yeah, I think we would like to get back before the Conservation Commission, at least before the conservation agent, just to get some feedback before going to the entire commission.
So I guess I would just say this, Grafton is a lower C conservative town when it comes to land use. Okay. Pushing boundaries about permitted wetlands disturbances is right off the bat going to go straight up their backside the wrong way. All right. So assume, for the sake of argument, that what you have gotten so far is what you're going to continue to get with each and every group or board or committee or commission that you go before in Grafton. We don't have any influence over them, nor would it be appropriate to exert any. They have their job to do, we have our job to do, and everybody's got to respect everybody's job. I would hope that they understand that we're in a housing crisis in Massachusetts, and these sorts of projects impact everybody. And that environmental issues have to live in concert with, just basic human needs, such as having a roof over your head. But I think, hopefully just having disturbed 300, what, yards?
300 square feet.
Square feet.
Square feet.
300 square feet. It's the size of a small room.
Yeah, well, hopefully that they find that acceptable. I wouldn't imagine why not, but that's better than 4,700.
Good. Dan.
Yeah, I just think what you said about sort of offering something like cleaning up invasive species. I think that offering something in exchange for being allowed to disturb some wetland, small amount. I think that's probably your best bet. I think because I agree with that. The conservation is a big thing for people in Grafton. So you probably telling them that this is reasonable isn't really going to be enough. You gotta, I guess, offer something.
So just briefly to bring everybody up to speed. So Concom is its own influence and own jurisdiction area, but it has an impact on the special permit process because if there's any substantive changes to how the layout is, it's going to impact the special permit process with the planning board. So while these things should be going in conjunction, I think it would behoove this project to get some of the final materials from Concom before we get too far along in the special permit process. And I know, Gene, you've been doing this for a long time, so you don't need me to tell you that, but this is just more for people who are watching it and seeing it. I would say from my perspective and my understanding of Concom is, while, I think we can send a letter, a memo from the trusts to make them understand the project. They should be aware of how it got to where it is and what it was before. So when we're talking about remediation, we're talking about invasive species, we're talking about the old highway barn that was there for 100 years being used for who knows what, for how long. So hopefully, there's some acceptance of that. I think what you're going to end up having to do is some, pretty creative stormwater management. Probably some of the green initiatives for handling runoff and, taking the temperature down and things of that nature before you discharge and, going through some of the modern standards. I think those type of things will be more palatable to them in the discussion than saying, well, this is great. We want it, 20 something units. Bringing that up, you took off 2 units, but this is not going to impact how many units we get for affordability, right, John?
Yeah, same number.
So we're getting the same number of units at this time.
From 124 to 122.
Okay.
And that's sort of a miracle because we have put parking back in the belly of the building, so to speak.
Well, I think if it goes too far down that road, it might be good to go back to the planning board and see what type of offset you can get for parking, because that's going to be.
We really don't need it because the lot on the other side handles it. What we want to have on this site is enough parking to handle at least 1 car for every apartment.
Fair enough.
So we have enough right now to handle about 132 parking spaces on this side and 77 on the other side. So I think that's a good toss up for us to get to market the project. There's stuff to make it marketable, right?
Fair enough.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
forgive the rookie question, but are they going to have to go before zoning as well, or just the planning board?
Just the planning board.
Okay.
Well, Concom as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's part of the one of the redeeming qualities of this particular project is it's in an overlay, so it's a special permit process which are intended to be granted by and large. So it's not the long drawn out process that the ZBA conducts, and they have their own thing to handle. So, but you see how that goes. You've been privy to the Providence Road development.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because even with the developer having Concom's recommendation and endorsement on their some of that stormwater runoff reclamation and treatment, they still, I think, have put them through the ringer for some additional information on that. So
Yep.
good that we can avoid it.
The 2 boards work hand in hand, and they do so quite often. So there's the communication between the two and all the parties should align at a certain point. It's a much more streamlined process.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any
I
questions?
intend to come up for that next Concom meeting. So I'll fly up there and do the presentation with Gene, and I guess we can negotiate right there because we control the purse strings. But the good news is that the financials didn't change much. So it's still a healthy project. Still makes money.
So, does anybody from the trust have any questions for Gene?
Not on this part.
Okay. So, Gene, I think we can. I know you. I asked you to be on a little late in the game, so all the other questions are going to be around invoicing and financing stuff. So,
You got it.
Want to stay for it? If not, then
If I can figure out how to make this thing
go
bigger
away.
so I can stop sharing.
The only thing, Gene, is I need to make
Yeah.
sure that what you provided tonight gets in the packet. So I told Amber that she's going to add it to the packet, even though it's late. I just still want it there for.
Do you want copies of those drawings?
Yeah, just email.
I can send them to Amber right now. Yeah. You got it. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
I really appreciate you showing up for this, Gene. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, so we have. I'm going to skip around a little bit because part B of this is doesn't really matter for John to be here. We have some invoices that need to get taken care of, but John, you weren't at our last meeting, so I know some of the trust members probably had some questions for you. If they don't, that's fine.
Sure.
Kathleen was going to be here tonight, but she had another commitment that she couldn't get away from. But she did send us some feedback on the invoices, and there are a couple things that we're going to have to take out. And she has these of note, but I'll go through those now with Dan to help me here. Yeah,
All right.
so you got a printed up copy?
Yes.
But I'll open it to the floor for any questions.
It's not
Most of my concern is just making sure substantive changes happening to the unit count, making sure this is still going to be financially viable, and making sure that we're getting updated financial statements from your end, and
Sure.
make sure we're updating the schedule as far as where you think things are going to go from your perspective and your company's perspective. So we know when abouts we're gonna be before planning board, when abouts we think we'll be ready to break ground, those type of things. So we got preliminary ones, but they're out of date now. So
Well, and also because we got held up at the conservation board, well, that's pushed us back almost a month now because we had to redesign the building.
that's I get that. I mean, that's the cost of doing business in this piece.
Yeah.
We're gonna run into that when we get to planning board 2. That might take a couple months as well, but
Yeah,
I'm more talking about globally speaking.
sure.
If you were to segment out 6 months for a permitting process, that turns us into next year, which could be an entirely different financial landscape. So
Yeah. John, I just in going through some of the billing here, I just had a couple of questions. Draw request number 2 is half of invoice number 23500-02. That includes some legal work, and one of the things that jumped out at me was corporate legal Stephen Preller. He submitted some hourly billing, and it was I'm a lawyer by trade myself, and I know everybody does this differently, particularly in different states, but the way Mr. Preller does it is not the way we do it in Massachusetts. Dave Pitney did a good job here of breaking out what they did as a description, how much time was spent, and a corresponding fee with that. Here I've got the law offices of Stephen B. Preller, and it's a lot of block billing that happened 2 years ago, and it's for a lot of other projects, and it is not apparent to me at all how he came up with the nice round number of $20,000 for 27 Upton Street. I would request that Mr. Preller figure out what he did for 27 Upton Street and submit us a bill accordingly. I'm
Okay.
surprised to see this.
this is also something that when Kathleen and I went through it today, So they're dated. Some of the dates are before the agreement was signed, and Kathleen's not comfortable with us endorsing a payment to something that's out of the scope of our particular agreement. There's that, and there's also a bill from Dave Pitney that was for the negotiation of the grant, which falls outside of the grant's purview too. So we're gonna move forward with the invoices that she's okayed. We're
right.
gonna have to get an update on those. I don't believe.
I'll have Steve Preller give you a broken down invoice. I know he was doing operating agreements and a number of other things that we needed to have done for bringing the partners in.
Because we will only pay stuff that's directly associated with this that falls underneath
Right.
the time frame
Right.
of the grant itself.
Okay, very good.
We're gonna have to renumber the invoices as they
Sure.
come. So we'll get to that later after we've had our talk, John, and we'll get the rest of this stuff done.
Right.
While you're here for an update, does anybody from the trust have any concerns that they want to address, or project updates or the stuff? I will say that this is about 17 and 27 Upton Street. It's out of place to talk about 8 Pine Street.
Sure. So what would were we to execute an authorization for some of this, I assume we would come back to dry request number 2 at a later date? Or, because both of the Dave Pitney stuff and the Preller stuff was all in draw request number 2, which is the largest of the payouts.
I can have that revised and up to you tomorrow if you tell me what things you want out of it.
Yeah, there's 2 specific things that Kathleen needed out of it, but this was late in the day, and then we had the master plan meeting, so I did not get it over. So Amber made copies of the email from Kathleen that came this afternoon.
I mean, the last thing I want to do is not pay bills on a timely fashion, because that's just going to slow things down too. So how do you want to do it?
You know what? Let's get John through his thing. If we need to pick apart the bills, we can.
Okay.
We'll get as much of it done as we can, but I don't want to waste your time with us going through that piece, because we can spend some time in the bill section doing that. I just want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to speak with you.
Sure. And like I said, if you have a disagreement with any of the bill issues with the bills, just get back to me and we can go back and you do a revision.
Okay. I want all this stuff to go through Kathleen, because she's our point of contact for it. She's the one with the most experience in this end of the world. And when we can use professionals to handle that,
Yeah.
she needs to. She just couldn't be here tonight, that's all.
Right.
What email are you talking about from Kathleen? That's
It came today.
I just
many-
forwarded it. I don't think it went to the whole trust. It was just to you and me.
No, I didn't get it there. It was too late to enter in the packet. She printed off a copy.
okay.
wanna
You
see
said you just forwarded it, Amber.
Yep.
That's gonna have to be part of the packet as well, but. So Nicole, for billing and stuff revolving around the grant, Kathleen O'Donnell is our counsel, you know that. She handles the go-between, because our resources are handled by the town. So we have to go through the normal process, the municipal process, to get checks cut and things like that. So Kathleen handles that. She goes over the bills, makes sure they conform to what we authorized and signed. And then she's supposed to send it to us with her approval.
Got
which
it.
She did. It's just got a little bit late today.
Yep.
So most of the time she is here to address these type of things. Does anybody else have any comments from the board? Eric, please.
Yeah, John, I was just wondering if we could get like kind of a general update on like the financing side of things. Like obviously interest rates have not been friendly in real estate development the last year and a half. So
Right.
I'm just my memory's a little fuzzy. Like is this like a traditional syndication where you have like LPs and then there's
We have
gonna be
GPs and LPs, and we have the bank. We also have PACE financing in this. So we're getting a loan of about 71% loan to value from the bank,
Okay.
and the remainder of that's all equity.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And are you,
And I guess the latest models we've run at 7.5% interest.
Just
Okay, which we just got offers on our project in Annapolis from banks at 6.5. So seems like we're doing better than the market as long as the project makes sense and makes money.
okay.
Before we get too far along in the conversation, can you just define what LP
Yeah, sorry.
PACE financing is?
Well, LP is limited partner money, so that's money that is not at risk. The GP money, which is the money we're putting in right now, is at risk because the project doesn't go forward for some reason or everything has to wait. Then that money is waiting with it. It's the money that you put up as risk to get your permits, your approvals, and your building permits. And once we have that done and have the drawings done, as you can see on our pursuit schedule, then the LP capital comes in. The LP capital on this project is somewhere around $10 million. And the GP money is around $2 million. And the remainder of that is money from the bank. The PACE financing, PACE is a program that is a separate loan, which is a non-recourse loan on the project, which is a loan that is given by the state for building energy efficient buildings. And so they support a certain amount of the of the construction loan, which is why it's not 60%, but 71%. And that's part of the state sponsored program. So they're very interested in doing the funding on this project, and so are the banks. The banks get special consideration from the Fed for doing projects with affordable housing.
Didn't mean to step on
No,
your
no,
toes, but-
it's good. Okay. And is there
And
like
next time,
a,
by the way, we meet, your next meeting, I can bring Greg in, our underwriter, who can give you a lot more information about where we are financially on the project and what it produces. But the project's very healthy. So I think that's good news for right now.
okay. And is there like a specific milestone where the LP money comes in? Like, is it after, the PNS gets signed or you get a full permit, or is it kind of
After we get our building permits,
building permit?
the LP money comes in. We'll purchase the property at that point in time, and we'll move the project into construction.
Got it. Okay. And are you fully subscribed on the LP side? Like, are you still
Well, we have two
fundraising?
groups looking at it right now. Gateway Global is the one group, and the other one is Capital Solutions out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
But you're not going to get any full subscription on anything until we're ready to go forward. Obviously, as you've seen, the markets change all over the place, and so just to be candid with you, the war in Israel isn't helping us at all.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Just as a reference point, subscriber is just a high level word for commitment.
Yeah, it's filling the LP fund.
Yeah.
So, with the money. That's all I
Anyone else
got.
have anything? I don't. Terrific. So I would actually love to meet with your agents at our next meeting. So I think that'd be
Sure.
It'd be good, especially for some of this high level conversation as we move and start talking to Concom and start talking about density issues that we might have, and then firming up the timeline. When we think we're gonna actually get to the point where we're breaking ground. But I know we got to get through Concom and Planning Board now. So, John, I appreciate you coming on. Does anybody else have anything with John before I cut him loose? Hearing that, John, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me. Have a great day.
Bye, John.
Bye.
Okay, so the other piece, the B piece that I passed over the last time. So when we first started the grant agreement, we got the boards and committees with due authority to give us kind of some of the kickback. Kickback's a bad word for it, sorry.
Yeah, let's not say that.
Let's not say kickback. So like permitting fees and water hookup fees and things of that nature that are, you know, substantive parts of having a 100+ unit building going. So it has been a while, and it is a new board as far as the select board is concerned. I did most of this just by going to meet with them and meeting with the town administrator and, you know, sewer department, et cetera, et cetera. I am well past my authority to do that again without getting permission from the trust to do it again. So I want permission to do it. If somebody else wants to do it, by all means. It might be easier for me to do it because most of the information is going to remain the same. So it should be easy, you know, lifting it up again. But I want your all's permission to do it. So
I make a motion to authorize the chair to request subsidies on local permitting costs for this project at 1727 Upton Street.
Second.
any discussion?
I mean, only to the extent that, I candidly, I wonder how far you're gonna get. There was some discussion about it with, I think 59 Pleasant Street recently, and there was a little bit of pushback there, but best of luck.
I think it might be a different landscape now.
Okay.
We might not get as much out of it, but most of the stuff that we prescribed back then still exists, so it shouldn't be a stretch for them to do it again. So this doesn't give me any signing authority or anything. I just need to get it framed, set up, get some acknowledgement, and then we can move forward with something that's papered a little bit more proper. Any more discussion? All those in favor by roll call, starting with Brittany.
Aye.
Nicole, I.
Eric, I.
Frisbee, aye.
Dan, I.
Jefferson, I.
And Bruce is an aye. Passes unanimously. I feel very special.
You should. You are.
Second.
Okay, so 25 Worcester Street. We got a relatively confusing email from the principal there. I assume everybody got it. And he couldn't be here tonight, and Kathleen couldn't be here tonight. I sent him an email basically telling that it really didn't make any sense what he was saying to me. And further along in the conversation, I basically just said, look, you know, the town may or may not be in safe harbor before our next meeting, but the ZBA is going to rule on that pretty soon. And I believe, if my math is correct, that will be a 1% move, having Pleasant Street get approved. Once it's under a comprehensive permit, the town can apply for safe harbor status again and start that process. I don't know why he said what he said, but I wasn't willing to get into it, you know, back and forth with an email. So I invited him to come to our meeting in November with councils so we can understand what he's talking about.
So, before we go too far down this road, I just want to say, I've read this email a couple times, and there were two initial ways I read it. The first way I read it was absolutely infuriating, and the second way I read it was just frustrating. And the first way I read it was, you know, it just sort of confirmed that the way we do housing in Massachusetts is absolutely ass backwards. You know, the idea that it's going to be somehow harder for us to create a project that's going to benefit people unless we get into safe harbor, which is harder to create a project that's going to benefit people, is absolutely asinine. But what I think he was saying here, and I know that everybody in this room knows this because we had this discussion 3 years ago. Massachusetts wants us affordable housing entities to push family housing, and they are hesitant to allow 55 plus housing without knowing that we're doing our level best to create family housing, which is what Kathleen talked about when we hired Kathleen. She said, look, I think you're fine because you have all this in the pipeline. So I think that's what he's referring to here. I think that's just that this guy Andy doesn't realize, number one, there's Upton Street, and number 2, there's 59 Pleasant Street, and number 3, 8 Pine is in the offing. It's just this whole pipeline. Again, this is a made-up word. What is the pipeline? The pipeline doesn't exist. The pipeline is an idea that, okay, somebody is going to come to us with a proposal for a project, and they're always going to be at various states of existence until there's a shovel in the ground. Somebody could pay for some permits. Doesn't mean there's going to be anything constructed necessarily. You can walk away from a permit like nothing. Somebody could be very serious about something and have gotten investors and have purchased some land, but they just haven't put down any money for the permits yet. So what EOH LCD,
Yeah,
LSD, I don't know.
Nobody can get that straight.
I've been working on it.
DOCD is much better.
It really is. So, but what they ought to be concerned with is whether or not we are actually efforting in a very serious way multifamily housing, and we are. Like there can be no doubt about that. And I think that maybe it's more of we need to get Andy to understand that.
Wait, I think as far as a government agency that's supposedly pouring in money into the housing crisis and trying to make more sense of it, would look up our own housing production plan. And our previous plan had all the goals and everything that was in the pipeline, and it should have been sufficient anyways. Our new one should remedy all of this anyways.
It really,
So,
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't get it. It was a little frustrating. When I first took a pass at it, I kind of was like, uh-oh, are they backing out?
Right.
And so I don't think that's the case. But either way, we'll bring them into the November meeting and hopefully we'll have a little bit more resolution on this. But it was a little bit odd.
Otherwise, the purchase and sale looks great.
Yeah. Yeah, from a document perspective.
Let's sign it.
Okay. So draw request 2, and just for reference, we're moving into the bill schedule, which we have to make some adjustments to. So while we make the sausage, so to speak, and unfortunately, I can't recess us to do this. So everybody, if you're watching this tape later, you're just gonna have to bear with it.
Okay.
So we have a printed copy of 2, right?
Can we skip 2 and just go to 3 and 4?
Well, sure, as long as they do not encompass the Day Pitney bill.
They don't.
Okay. Well, then I will entertain a motion to pay draw request number 3 and draw request number 4
So
as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on draw request 3 and draw request 4?
Just to point out, just so having gone through what the invoices are and what the request is, going backwards from the most recent one, which is draw request number 4, this is work that they did recently in the context of, because of what Concom had determined were wetlands encroachments, some redesign work it looks like, revised building height for 3D model, modified roof lines, etc. This looks, this is all legitimate. I know that I have some questions, and I think other people do too, about the difference between GSX Solutions and the other entity that's doing some of the work here. But all that being said, this just looks like the most recent stuff. It's fine. It doesn't include any of the legal work, and specifically, when you go to the breakdown, it says Dave Pitney, nothing this month. Corporate legal, Stephen Prowler, nothing this month. So.
Well, 3 and 4, I think, are how Kathleen wants them set up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're just easier to read.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor by roll call, starting with Brittany.
Aye.
Nicole, I.
Frisbee, aye.
Andy.
Jefferson, I.
Dan.
Dan, I.
Eric.
Abstain.
Bruce is an aye. So, Amber, can you get those over to the treasurer tomorrow?
Sure.
All right, and then having thought about this again, if he's okay with it,
Want to kick it over?
yeah, should we just kick it to November?
Yeah.
And get it revised completely?
Yep.
I fear that we'll do something wrong and then we'll send a check with the wrong number and things aren't gonna match up. So, as much as I think we're competent enough to handle this type of stuff on the fly,
I would just say this, as long as we're talking about this right now. I would like, everybody else is providing a detailed invoice for services rendered except for GSX Ventures.
okay.
All right, so he's describing what he's doing here, but I don't know how he's billing for it. And it's GSX Solutions paying GSX Ventures. You see my issue?
Yeah, it's passed through.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I'd like a little more
Okay.
there.
And that might, that might be explained in the call with their underwriter.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is if this is a typical syndication with limited partners, the GPs charge what's called like an operator's fee or a management fee.
Yep.
If that's what this is, that's fine because again, we're subsidizing this to make the numbers work from an equity standpoint so that they'll do the affordable units. But I just don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that I requested that we see is their end of it. So this is supposed to be a 50-50. They're supposed to have money going in. I want to see the money that is coming out of their bank account. I know it might not be a bank account, but for lack of a better term, I just want to see their end of it. Yeah.
Show me the money.
So, I don't know if they have to according to the grant agreement, so we asked. We can press it if we want to, but I think just from a public perspective, seeing that this is something where we have to make sure that everything on our end is displayed very well, I think we should display some of their end too. I don't think it would be too hard for them to do it. So, and I think that goes along the line with what you're saying too, Eric. It just provides the clarity so we don't have these questions coming up.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments? Everybody okay with this holding off on draw request two? Brilliant. So I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of September 14th, 2023 as drafted.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor by roll call. Starting with Nicole.
Nicole, I.
Eric,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Bruce is an aye.
Dan, I.
Jefferson, I.
Brittany.
Aye.
Brilliant. Well, that just kind of wraps up everything we're doing. Does anybody else want to talk about stuff? You can't.
I want
It's
to
not
talk about
on the
adjournment.
agenda.
Sorry, I just one thing, two things. If you have not read the Boston Globe Spotlight series this week, I believe it is our very own Kathleen O'Donnell who is quoted extensively in the first Spotlight article, which is all about Milton, Massachusetts. I did not know.
Just talked about that today.
So Kathleen has had a really interesting career. She's a very good lawyer. She's very highly regarded. And in addition to doing all that, she apparently was on the planning board in her community and was summarily voted off the planning board for supporting affordable housing. So it's not just us, I guess, is the silver lining there. But do read that and do share those articles to the extent that you can on social media. The other thing I noticed, and I didn't want to make this amendment in the minutes because I guess it doesn't matter, but when we were talking about the barn on Upton Street, but this is something I just want to put in people's heads. We were talking about the barn on Upton Street. John Stevens mentioned, well, of course it's historic because it's older than 50 years old, which is just ridiculous. I mean, from at least a property preservation standpoint, a lot of the housing stock in Grafton is over 50 years old, and most of the new stuff that's been built around 2000 is going to be 50 years old, and not too long from now. So, I mean, that's how communities become stale and stagnant, is just by preserving every little last thing. Things ought to be, from my perspective, at least unique in order to be preserved indefinitely. And yeah, I just found that just, again, given the Milton thing with the Spotlight story and that comment, I was like, this is how hard it is to get anything done in Massachusetts. It's frustrating.
So I think just a little bit from his perspective, I think it was the age, and also I think the thing that made it unique from what he was saying was that black market cattle operation.
Yes.
Which I would question, but I think it wasn't just the age, to be fair. I think he was also making a point that there is something unique about it, which I think is a subjective thing. So, reasonable people can disagree, but
Either way, we need it for parking, and we need it for parking so we can get a permit to get people into homes in town.
Yeah, that's
Generally
like
couldn't avoid
something they can take a photograph of and put it in a history, book or place wherever they're keeping other historical facts of Grafton if they want to tell that story with like a quick
Black
photograph.
market cows. Like, that's there's got to be a story there.
That is unique.
There's got to be
Maybe.
a story there.
If there's an actual story.
There's a screenplay waiting to
It's a
happen.
lot of fun.
Looks like a safety hazard to me. I mean, the thing looks like it is covered in lead paint and it is just chipping.
Nobody wants
It's a cinder block foundation building.
I feel like a lot of people wanted it because they thought it was going to turn into something cool like a beer garden or something.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
It does look kind of cool, but
Yeah, it would be nice
Gotta
if
make
we
choices.
could keep all
Right.
these things.
Right.
Does anybody else have anything that they need on the next meeting? Just email Amber and she'll get it to me when we do. But November 8th is, if you can make it, please let Amber know, and then I will post a meeting for it in case we're in quorum.
Sure.
So we do not have to be. I wasn't going to be able to attend, so I don't think we were going to have a quorum, but now that I can, we may. So about a week out, Amber's going to send an email like she does for these meetings, so just make sure you post up on that.
Okay.
And that's all I have. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor, starting with Brittany.
Nicole, I.
Eric, I.
Frisbee, aye.
Dan, I.
Jefferson, I.
Bruce is an A. But I got outvoted, so goodbye, everybody.
You're one of those people at town meeting that